You know, since we, I have to catch a flight,
Okay.
so by the time
Yeah,
he's
and I am not speaking for 20 minutes.
Yes.
well, that's just to introduce me. Takes 20 minutes.
Okay, you guys are the experts. Where's his resume?
What is this here?
He's on the elevator.
Okay.
That's good.
You're on mic, Senator. I was going to say, what'd you say about the Giants?
I was trying to help you out before you got to the.
Thank you for the best.
Good, thank you. How are you? Nice to see you.
Congressman, thank you for joining us. Steve.
No, I'd rather have you on my side. All these guys can stay on that side.
Congressman, you get lost on the way here? I don't know if you've ever been to the building before.
Welcome to Paterson, Congressman.
That's right.
Dropping the governor. Look at this guy.
Excuse me.
Name dropping.
Yes.
Governor.
Sorry.
I was with the governor. You're
You
walking.
had
Were you
to
at
rub
Mr.
it
G's?
in.
You were at Mr. G's?
My team lost last night.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta catch a flight. So.
I can't see the tie you're wearing.
Oh, look, it's patriotic. Very patriotic.
Get in here.
Congressman, please.
Get in the middle there.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I knew that to get everyone's attention.
We're all woken up.
That was a Cory Booker greeting. So I want to thank our federal delegation of bona fide champions because they've issued the clarion call relative to climate change. And if people did not believe climate change was real, well, look at the storms. Become more frequent, more fierce, and sadly, in some cases, more fatal. And so today we're joined by our champions as they work to reframe the nation's entire disaster paradigm on one that's focused more on prevention and mitigation to spare the high cost of rebuilding after flood disasters. We are still recovering from Ida. In fact, Senator Mendez, thank you for visiting the areas that were ravaged by floods. We had over 100 people displaced, rescue operations where 200 people had to be brought to safety by boat. And so we stand together as a united front saying that our residents need relief. Our residents need recovery. And our residents have champions who will make sure that happens. As if we didn't hug enough, Congressman. So at this time, I'm profoundly proud to present to you the senior senator from the Garden State, the Honorable Bob Mendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, very much. Thank you. It's great to be back in the great city, historic city of Paterson, the Great Falls, Alexander Hamilton, and Bill Pascrell. So thank you again for hosting us here. Let me thank all of our participants. My colleague, of course, in the Senate has been a champion with me on this issue, Senator Cory Booker. Bill Pascrell, as you've all heard me say time and time again, if I'm in a fight, I want Bill Pascrell to be in my corner in order to assure it. I appreciate Amanda DeVecca-Rainier, who is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Organizing Project, being here and for her tremendous work since Sandy. Thank you, Amanda, very much. And Joe Mangino, the Board President, as well. We thank him for being here. Doug Quinn, who you'll hear from, the Executive Director of the American Policyholder Association. Eileen Horowitz, who is the past President of the New Jersey Realtors. And I don't know if Jeff is with us, Jeff Jones of the New Jersey Realtors. I don't know if he made it or not, but just in case he's here, we appreciate his work. So this is all of our individuals who have been working with us to make this a real possibility. And I also want to thank Congressman Frank Pallone, Chairman of the Commerce Committee, who is working with Congressman Pascrell to make this a reality in the House. We were here in Paterson not so long ago, the Congressman and I, surveying the damage left behind by Tropical Storm Ida. We started, what started out as a hurricane off the Gulf Coast, ended claiming the lives of 30 New Jerseyans, making it the second deadliest storm in our history. Of course, today we mark 9 years since the deadliest storm, the deadliest natural disaster in our state's history. On October 29th of 2012, Superstorm Sandy slammed into New Jersey, inflicting breathtaking damage and ultimately claiming 37 lives. Time may pass, but the images of Sandy's destruction remain as clear as ever in my mind. I'll never forget touring the damage from the flooded streets of Hoboken to the iconic Jersey Shore businesses swept away by storm surge, from the homes torn from their foundation, truck-sized holes in living rooms, furniture buried in mud and sand, and mold growing on walls. And I saw the fear and uncertainty in the eyes of New Jersey families displaced from their homes. I made a pledge to Sandy survivors, some of which are here today, that I would do everything in my power to get them back into their homes. And little did we know what a tall order that would be. As I often say, Sandy victims survived a natural disaster only to face a man-made disaster called the National Flood Insurance Program. As Joe and Doug will tell you, the claims process was stacked against homeowners at every turn. Flood insurance companies denied claims from policyholders who faithfully paid their monthly premiums for years, sometimes even decades, only to be abandoned in their hour of need when, for the first time, they made a claim. It took congressional hearings. By that time, Senator Booker had joined me, and we pushed hard. Relentless pressure and an unprecedented reopening of the claims process to get many Sandy survivors back in their homes. And ever since, we have been shouting from the rooftops that without reform, future flood victims would face the same broken system. Well, here we are. Today, the National Flood Insurance Program remains plagued by policies that shortchange flood victims and overcharge taxpayers, by chronic underinvestment in cost-saving flood prevention, and most of all, by soaring premiums and falling participation rates slated to get even worse under FEMA's new premium rating system called Risk Rating 2.0. We need real reform, especially as climate change sends more powerful storms and deadly floods our way with greater frequency. That's why we're announcing the introduction of the National Flood Insurance Reauthorization and Reform Act. This bipartisan, bicameral legislation will make premiums more affordable for low and middle income Americans, including in high-cost states like New Jersey. It will strengthen the sustainability by investing in cost-saving mitigation. And finally, it will hold the insurance industry more accountable for consumers. Let's start with affordability, because at the end of the day, people won't buy flood insurance if they can't afford it. Today, 5 million Americans, including 220,000 New Jerseyans, rely on the National Flood Insurance Program to buy flood insurance, which is why this program was created. This program was created in the first place because we couldn't get flood insurance in the private market, and to the extent that it was available at all, it was cost prohibitive. So we created the National Flood Insurance Program. But year after year, premiums have taken bigger bites out of their budgets. And now, with FEMA's new Risk Rating 2.0 system taking effect, some homeowners will face even higher premiums that risk driving them out of the program altogether. And don't take my word for that. The Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan scorer of everything that we do in Congress, projects that up to 900,000 people may drop their policies when Risk Rating 2.0 takes premiums through the roof. That's nearly 20% of all the policyholders in the National Flood Insurance Program. Look, we want a flood insurance program that factors in climate risk, but hiking premiums and driving people from the program is not a path to sustainability. It is the first step in a death spiral. So, I always say this is Insurance 101. I don't care if you're talking about health insurance, car insurance, flood insurance, or any other kind of insurance. The fact is that insurance only works when a large pool of policyholders spreads out the risk. The smaller the pool, The higher the premiums, the more people drop out, and you have a never-ending death spiral. We need affordable policies to keep homeowners on board and encourage even more buy-in. That's why we cap premium increases and provide means-tested assistance for low and middle-income families, including in high-cost states like New Jersey. Our bill also supercharges investments in cost-saving mitigation so we can prevent floods in the first place. And as has been said here by the mayor, climate change is here. There may be deniers, but the climate isn't denying what they seek, what's happening. It's here. I've spent decades calling for action to cut carbon pollution and slow climate change. I have 3 beautiful granddaughters, and I consistently worry about what kind of world we are leaving them. The fires, the floods, the droughts, the lost crops, it will all get worse in the years ahead. Future generations are depending on us. I don't know what will motivate my Republican colleagues to join us in what it should be a common fight. But let's be clear. Even if somehow the entire United States went completely carbon neutral tomorrow, we would still need to invest in mitigation to create a more sustainable flood insurance program. Here's why. Rebuilding after a flood is far more expensive than preventing a flood in the first place. We saw the value of mitigation during Hurricane Ida. Without the stronger levees we built after Katrina, Ida would have inflicted even more billions of dollars in damage. Every dollar spent on mitigation scores and generates $6 in savings. Who wouldn't make that investment if they could get $6 on every dollar they invested? It's like Ben Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's why our bill includes funding for buying out and elevating flood-prone properties, and we're pushing for funding to revamp FEMA's flood maps, which we, all who voted for the Build Back infrastructure program, it has an enormous amount of money for flood maps to make sure that we have the most sophisticated flood maps. Because there's a difference of what you pay if you're in the midst of a flood zone versus if you're not, or on the edge of it, or only in a 100-year occurrence. So to do that, you need the right flood maps. So we're pushing for funding to revamp FEMA's flood maps so we can have the accurate data that leads to better building as well and land use. Finally, we strengthen oversight and give consumers a fairer shake during the claims process. After Sandy, congressional investigations exposed how FEMA lowballed consumers and denied legitimate claims. Our bill levels the playing field for policyholders. We impose deadlines on insurance companies to process claims and respond to appeals in timely fashion, or pay a price. We close ridiculous loopholes like the Earth Movement inclusion, because during a 13-foot storm surge, the soil under your home just doesn't move by itself. We also improve training for insurance agents and adjusters. We make it easier for FEMA to fire negligent contractors, and we take steps to stop bad actor attorneys getting rich by using taxpayer dollars to fight flood victims in court. It's time Congress stops kicking the can down the road with reauthorizations that do not address the systemic problems plaguing this program. With this legislation, we can make the National Flood Insurance Program more sustainable, we can make flood insurance more affordable, and we can hold FEMA and its private contractors more accountable. And instead of waiting for the next disaster to strike, we can invest in mitigation that prevents costly flood damage in the first place and costly consequences to a family's lives. With that, let me introduce my colleague who has been a champion with me on this issue, Senator Cory Booker.
I want to thank Senator Mendez for his extraordinary leadership. As he indicated on this day back in 2012, he was, along with Congressman Pascrell, Congressman Pallone, they were our federal delegation. I was, like Marcia, I was a mayor. I was a mayor of Newark, New Jersey. We lost lives in my city. There were millions and millions of dollars done of property damage. I literally saw houses being swept away in the ironbound, knocked off their foundation. And in that time of need, Senator Mendez and our congressional delegation were champions because the system was shown that it would not work. We saw insurance companies denying people coverage, using all kind of what I would call loopholes. It did not work in the way it should. In fact, Senator Mendez and I are still doing work, constituent work, around the issues of what happened back in 2012. Not to mention the compounding of that problem with these storms that are all the more frequent now. These 100-year storms seem to be hitting our state just about every single year, as we have seen with multiple flood events this year. And amidst it all, I have to say, we are seeing other types of storms gathering, and those are the kind that are man-made. We have a proposal by FEMA seeking to implement a new system, the NFIP rating system known as Risk Rating 2.0. And as Senator Mendez outlined in great detail, we know there's a better way to do this. And that's why I'm proud to be with Senator Mendez on his bill, the National Flood Insurance Reauthorization and Reform Act. This is critical. Why? Well, number one, we want to make sure that we have a flood insurance program that doesn't serve insurance companies simply, but actually serves people. That New Jerseyans who are already battling too high costs actually have an insurance program that doesn't push them out of having insurance, but makes sure that they have it. We want to make sure that insurance that they have is substantive and there for them when it's needed. This is a common sense, pragmatic bill that will do just that. In addition, we think that we need to invest. A stitch in time saves nine. That we need to take the kind of mitigation efforts that ensure that we as a state are doing everything possible, not just to protect our homeowners and families, but frankly, to protect our way of life. Whether it is critical infrastructure for our economy, like the shore economy, or whether it is the kind of health that we need to protect our drinking water and more. These are the kind of mitigation efforts that will ensure that in a time of climate change, in a time of increasing storms, we are protecting people, we're protecting our way of life, and we're protecting our state. This is legislation that must pass, and I'm happy to say that we have folks from other states like Louisiana who are facing a lot of the same challenges that we are, and it cuts through some of the partisanship in Washington. I'm going to finally say that this is, to me, a critical bill to be passed in this Congress because it's a time that we can get a lot done, as President Biden is showing right now with our legislation that we look to be passing through reconciliation, the Build Back Better legislation. It is about time that we do what this bill is doing in a broader sense. What is this bill doing? We want to, in our state, to lower costs for New Jerseyans, whether it's lowering your prescription drug cost, your health care cost, your child care cost. We believe, as leaders, Senator Mendez and I believe, in the Senate, we've got to drive down the costs of New Jerseyans, including doing things like reversing the toxic Trump tax cuts that benefited the few at the expense of everyone in New Jersey, because one of the things that they balanced that they paid for that bill with was by taking away our state and local tax deduction. That's what the urgency is right now. We are trying to drive down costs for New Jerseyans, protect our way of life, invest in common sense mitigation, and make sure that when the inevitable storms of life happen, whenever the inevitable storms that we see happening more and more, that we remain in this state Jersey strong. I want to bring up the powerful, prodigious, pugilist. Three Ps. He's not pugnacious. No, but he is prescient. And I want to bring up my friend, Congressman Pascrell.
Yes, from Paterson. Paterson. With one T, Tom, one T.
With one T. I just want to remind the press this morning, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Facts do matter. And I remember these two guys, Mendez and Cory Booker,
Yes, sir.
Mendez. I remember after Sandy, very firm in my mind, you know, I'm getting old and I forget some things, but I remember this. You two guys led the way for many people who no one listened to from the shore communities. And to this day, many of those people never got their due dessert. Talk to many of those people. Myself, Frank Pallone, Bobby Mendez, Cory Booker. That's what this is all about. You know, we fighting every day, getting home late, getting no sleep. I just had my supper and my breakfast this morning at Mr. G's, where the governor is right now. And I made sure when I walked in, I ordered my blueberry pancake. So I was going to eat there. Hello to the governor, but I got to eat. This is serious business. Because many people go to Washington to think about what happens there and believe they're going to change the world or the country with some magic. There's no magic. When you're on the phone in the senator's office or the congressman's office, and one of the staff, one of the caseworkers is talking to a woman who has no place to turn, or homeowners who have no place to turn. The mayor came to me when he first was elected mayor. In fact, before.
Yeah.
It's in the old 6th Ward where I grew up. And he said, you know, we have a problem because many of the people who have to have flood insurance really, I think, Congressman, are not in the plane.
Yeah.
Now, these people are paying a lot of money every year. East 30th Street, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
East 30th Street. The whole block in that neighborhood. And we went to work together, thanks to Bob Mendez also and Cory Booker also. And we removed them from the flood maps. You say, well, who cares? You know what it saved them every year? Some people. It was just amazing. I didn't believe it when I saw the numbers. So a lot of people don't want to be in the floodplain, but a lot of people shouldn't be in the floodplain. So we're going to deal with this insurance problem of rates, and that's going to be a big story down the road a little piece. It should be a big story right now. And thank you, Bob, for what you've done over the years. And Cory, thank you for always being there. I especially want to thank Bob Mendez for his dedication to making flood insurance, the flood insurance program, affordable and fair. And it isn't any happening that this is a bipartisan situation. It took Louisiana being in the depths of the water to say, yeah, you guys are right, we better join us. It's not socialism, you know. And of course, I want to recognize Cory, who's there on all the big issues that don't mean very much maybe on the front page, but what people have to deal with every day. I came to Congress to deal with those folks who are not on the front pages. Of course, the media don't want to hear that sometimes because they want to be on the front page with the story. And probably if I was with you, I'd do the same thing. I want to recognize our mayor for helping Paterson navigate through these tough storms. And our fearless flood of advocates with the New Jersey Organizing Project. We know Jerseyans got screwed after the devastation of Hurricane Sandy. That red tape slowed our recovery. It is unacceptable. I remember, what are you talking about Sandy, Pascrell? That happened a long time ago. So did when we were born, happened a long time ago. I remember Sandy's devastation like it was yesterday along the Passaic River. Remember, that was not a heavy rainstorm. Wind, backing up the Hackensack, terrifying the people along the Passaic River. How quickly we forget. It was not Sandy, but Hurricane Irene the next time. Before that was so bad that President Obama came to survey the damage here. You were a councilman. Yeah. The homes were damaged, the businesses were destroyed, and the mold, the sand, and the debris. Our neighbors saw their entire lives swept away in one instant. These 100 and 500-year storms are now coming every month. Facts matter. I hold this up when I talk on the floor about these things, to the other side, of course. Facts matter. Of course, when you make up the facts, then they matter. No, they should matter. Our neighbors saw this. Many of my memories of storms past came rushing back after Hurricane Ida. Remember Hurricane Ida? We have come a long way, but we still have not fully recovered. Together, our delegation, led by Bob Mendez, Frank Pallone, Cory Booker, have been lockstep preparing for the next storm. Most pressing is the new risk rating, which Senator Mendez referred to. It's a program by FEMA. Unilaterally imposing. It will increase premiums for 4 out of 5, or over 170 policyholders in New Jersey alone. 843, or 76% of them, live right here in Paterson, New Jersey. We're in Paterson because, according to FEMA, this part of our city will face the brunt of the rate hikes. Some policyholders will expect to pay more than $1,000. Rate hikes are currently capped at 18%. We're demanding a lower cap because we know, look, we've been turned down a number of times. Pascrell, why do you stay involved in these things that it takes you so darn long to win? Well, I'm a slow learner, but I don't yield. And I don't yield. That's why I like working with Cory and Bob. They don't yield. They don't forget. They do fact checks every day. Rate hikes are currently capped at 18%. Remember that. Back in March, Congressman Pallone and I demanded a delay to prevent rate hikes. They were unanswered, those calls. And recently, I led 38 members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, urging a delay. It's been a hard slog to get Paterson and New York residents relief. That is why we're announcing our bipartisan bicameral bill. It will do a lot more. It will make the program more affordable and fair. Our bill has affordability safeguards to stop premiums from being jacked up. Our bill helps people prepare prior to a storm with the accurate maps. Do you know some of our maps have not been changed in 50 years? How do we make plans? How can we say we're working with the facts? Our bill brings much needed accountability to the Write Your Own program. So we're going to work hard, continue to do that, to make sure we pass these changes into law, this Congress. We owe it to our flooding victims. And I might say, in conclusion, while nothing seems to be happening to bring things to resolve in Washington, we did have a hearing, and the Rules Committee did vote it out, so we're ready to vote on the infrastructure, and we're close on Build Back Better. He deserves better as the President of the United States of America. I don't care whether he's Democrat or Republican. He deserves better than this. When you see how he was treated when he became the President of the United States, no cooperation whatsoever, not even a congratulation. Look, I went to that inauguration. I bit my tongue 200 times during that inauguration of the other guy that's left. Damn it, I don't mention his name. Not in this hollow ground. My friends, facts do matter. So I don't care what you write, but if you get your facts from the wrong source, you're going to have problems. Big problems. If the Wall Street Journal gets its facts from the wrong, they let this guy write an op-ed piece the other day on why the election should be overturned. We're living in strange times. So I see flooding through the prism of the United States has to move forward on both tangible and socially tangible issues. This is the greatest country in the world, but we have to keep on proving it, unfortunately. So thank you for being here, and we're anxious for your questions, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Congressman. Next, out of adversity and disaster, some powerful things came that were positive. One of them is the New Jersey Organizing Project, where citizens came together to meet the challenges, and its president, Joe Mangino, is with us today.
All right. Good morning. Sandy anniversaries actually kind of feel like the movie Groundhog Day to me. Here I am once again, another year at the podium on another Sandy anniversary, talking about how I'm haunted by the memories of seeing the water line on my neighbor's garage door for the first time as I drove down the street, how the smell of the bay punched me in the face when I opened the door to my house. I remember the hundreds of people that I hugged and gave comfort to as my volunteers were carrying their storm-damaged possessions to the curb. I remember every battle I fought with contractors, utility companies, insurance companies, government agencies, just to get my family home and my community rebuilt. And I hate referring to myself as a Superstorm Sandy victim, and I'm not here as a victim of Sandy. I faced Sandy head on, and I won. I went so far as to use my gutted home as a relief center for local volunteers. I'm here as a victim of a broken disaster recovery system, a system that allowed crooked contractors to run wild and run away with homeowners' money, a system that allowed private insurance companies who administer the NFIP to lie, cheat, and steal from policyholders, a disaster recovery system that has changed little over the last 9 years and continues to leave us ill-prepared for the increasing severity of storms and the impacts that we're seeing from climate change. And that's why it's so important that we're standing here today with legislation to overhaul the National Flood Insurance Program based on the experiences from people like me and our senators and representatives who have stood in the trenches and fought to get families home. And my colleague and fellow Sandy survivor Doug Quinn is going to make that 100% clear when he gets up here to talk about how these reforms will hold the write your own insurance companies accountable and put policyholders first. I'm going to focus on two other key reforms that are put forward today in the NFIP REACT. There's no point in having a flood insurance program that regular people like myself can't afford. FEMA is rolling out reforms with risk rating 2.0 that have real potential to price homeowners out of the protections we need and deserve. We have to make flood insurance affordable for families because if you have a mortgage and you live in a flood zone, you are required to carry it. So when people can't afford flood insurance, It means they can't afford to stay in their homes and their communities. The NFIP REACT does that in two critical ways. First, it addresses costs and payments. Our bill will cap rate increases at 9%, introduce an affordability program that considers housing costs for low and middle income families so they aren't priced out of coverage, and even the incredibly obvious, and I can't believe we need to pass a bill to allow us to do this, but to allow policyholders to make monthly payments. You can't do that right now. But they do let you put your flood insurance on a credit card. Obviously, we can do better, and we have a plan to do better. And second, the other thing that lowers flood insurance costs and saves taxpayer funding is investing in mitigation. Our homes and communities are better prepared for flooding and storms. We're less likely to lose everything and need a flood insurance payout. But most people can't afford it. The reforms we're introducing today would take things like our ICC coverage and let us access it before a storm and establish multiple programs to increase funds available for mitigation. The road home after a disaster is not an easy one, and some are still living that nightmare. For others, like those dealing with the effects of Ida that ravaged parts of New Jersey, unfortunately, their nightmare is just beginning. Chills literally went down my spine during one newscast when a guy whose home was damaged by Ida was saying the exact same things I said 9 years ago about me being home in 6 to 8 weeks. It took me 3 years. And I said to myself, I'm like, this poor bastard does not know what he is in for. And that's why we're here today. We have a responsibility to apply the hard lessons learned from Sandy to make our national flood insurance program work better for families like mine and to be better oriented towards the future that we face. As storms like Ida and Sandy continue to impact our communities, we need to come together to create a disaster recovery system that works for our communities and puts our families first. Our frontline communities deserve a say in how we adapt to rising seas. As Sandy survivors, we are the experts and we should be listened to. What's going to happen when I step to the podium next year on the 10th anniversary of Sandy? Is it going to be another Groundhog's Day? Or can I thank the people assembled here for getting real substantial change to happen? I appreciate your time today.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Next is Doug Quinn. Doug is a Marine who served his country with honor. He is a Sandy survivor and was one of my sources of inspiration during this work that we did together. And he is now the executive director of the American Policyholders Association. Doug?
My name is Doug Quinn. As the Senator mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the American Policyholder Association. We are a national consumer protection nonprofit formed in the waters of Sandy to defend other Americans from the kind of abuses we saw of American citizens happen during Sandy. And I want to first thank the gentleman behind me because every year it kind of feels like, all right, we're getting the band back together. But what I promise you is these actions and these efforts go on throughout the year. Congressman Pascrell, Senator Booker, Senator Mendez, Frank Pallone, Congressman Pallone, they're fighting for us every day, and we really appreciate that. These efforts are continuing behind the scenes, and it's 9 years later. 9 years where my own friends and family are saying, Sandy, is that still going on? And we have these heroes of representative government who are standing up for us and still fighting for us. And the reality is, and I also want to thank Governor Murphy, who was elected 5 years after Sandy. One of the promises he made to us is he would do something to help the plight of Sandy survivors, and he absolutely did, and he is continuing to do so, and we're looking for the governor to help us forgive clawbacks, these egregious clawbacks that are a threat hanging over Sandy survivors' heads. So the governor's office is working with us to take care of that, and we appreciate Governor Murphy's efforts. And I thank these gentlemen because I'm not only the executive director of a national nonprofit, I'm a victim of what happened from the National Flood Insurance Program scandal in Hurricane Sandy. I'm a victim of the FEMA and the NFIP's lack of oversight negligent lack of oversight of the write your own insurance companies and the law firms that they hired, like Nielsen and Trees, the engineering firms they hired, like U.S. Forensic, who was caught red-handed changing survivors' reports to say that no damage was done, for Wright Flood Insurance Company, whose vice president of claims stood up in court and when asked if he participated in committing fraud against consumers, took the Fifth Amendment. These are the bad actors that Senator Mendez has always promised to get rid of. And we're looking for that to happen. And one of the things I want to talk about is, after Sandy, my house was destroyed. It had to be demoed. My insurance company paid me 37 cents on the dollar. I believe in insurance. I bought the maximum legal amount of flood insurance I could buy, $250,000. Like Joe mentioned, I thought I'd be home in weeks, maybe a couple of months, with $250,000 of flood insurance, 3-4 feet of water of Barnegat Bay in my living room. No problem. My house is condemned. My insurance company paid me 37 cents on the dollar. It took me 7 years to get home. My teenage daughter grew up and moved away. Both my parents got sick and died during that process, and I still wasn't home. And we've come here every year and throughout the year to fight what happened to that, because I got the earth movement exclusion from U.S. Forensics, these huge cracks in my foundation that nobody saw when I had just bought my home, had been there all along, and it was the earth moving. We watched people who still are not home today. And I can't tell you how heartbreaking it was to look at my teenage daughter and say, we can't go home because our insurance company cheated and an agency of our government charged with overseeing them let it happen. And the only thing I can say is what that did to a teenage American's faith in government was devastated. And that was alleviated to a degree by Senator Mendez, Senator Booker, other members of the New Jersey congressional delegation who fought for us. Senator Mendez actually did a press conference in my living room. It restored our faith in government. There were people who were fighting for us. There were people who were representing us. And they're out there fighting for us all the time, because the bad actors that came to New Jersey had been implicated in doing this to Americans all over the country before, Hurricane Katrina and on. And this is Jersey. We did not let them get away with it, and we're not going to rest until we do something to make sure it doesn't happen to others, because I'm in disaster zones all over the country. The same things that we see in Jersey, I see everywhere. The same bad actors that came here and abused our citizens, I see abusing people all over the country. So that's why we need something like the NFIP REACT. It makes flood insurance affordable. 2.0 is a nightmare. It is anticipated to raise the premiums on 80% of policyholders. And it's curious that the first thing that FEMA is looking for is for us to pay more money. Whereas the strategy should be to first build a national flood insurance program that has integrity and honesty in the claims process, that we can have confidence in paying our premiums to. Then come back and try to get more money. Fine. NFIP RE will fix a lot of the problems with what's going on with the NFIP. Specifically, it'll make it more affordable. The less affordable it is, the less people are involved, the less successful the program will be, the less Americans it will help. Above and beyond that, it puts focus on mitigation. As Senator Booker referenced, a stitch in time saves 9. In this case, Senator, it's 6. Every dollar spent on mitigation saves $6 on cleaning up the mess after the fact. We have to be responsible with our premium payers and taxpayers' money. Above and beyond that, it caps the ridiculous profit margins of write-your-own insurance companies who make in excess of 30% profits without putting a penny of their own capital at risk. That's a problem. It also gives FEMA the ability to get rid of the bad actors that we spoke about. And above and beyond that, it tightens FEMA's responsibility to have responsible oversight on the write-your-own insurance companies. and it does something to get rid of $400 million a year of interest payments paid to the U.S. Treasury on debt accumulated by the NFIP. It's a drain coming out of the program, and that's why the program will not be sustainable unless we do something. Climate change is real. As the congressman says, facts are real, climate change is real. We need to do something now to mitigate against the problems that come from, listen, I came home yesterday to Barnegat Bay in the street in front of my house, flooding. This is real and it's happening, and we need to do something about it to make sure that we're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, very much for your continuing advocacy. We did a press conference in your home when it was just studs, and we did a press conference in your beautiful home after you finished. So we're so glad you're finally back in. Finally, Eileen Horowitz represents the New Jersey Realtors. And the reason they're here is because for most Americans, for most New Jerseyans, a home is the single biggest asset that they'll build wealth on, transfer wealth between families, be able to take out a loan for a college education or dealing with health care. But without insurance, flood insurance, if you happen to be a flood zone, you can't get a mortgage. If you can't get flood insurance, you can't sell your home easily if it's in a flood zone. So this also has an incredible economic dimension to it as well. So Eileen, please come up forward.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Hi. As the Senator said, I'm Eileen Horowitz, a realtor and New Jersey Realtors past president. On behalf of the 63,000 New Jersey Realtors across the state, we thank you, Senator Mendez, Senator Booker, and of course, Congressman Pascrell. Thank you for having us and having representation. We are thankful for your leadership in shepherding this issue. New Jersey Realtors has closely followed the impacts of the National Flood Insurance Program for many years. We are pleased to see that this legislation proposes a 5-year long-term reauthorization. We have raised concerns with Risk Rating 2.0 that your legislation addresses, and we thank you for continuing to be our voice on this issue. As you said, Senator, from a residential perspective, we are supportive of the Senator's legislation as we have some long-standing concerns with Risk Rating 2.0. It is our understanding that the premiums would now be based on housing values, which may not be accurate reflection of risk, which causes us concern about affordability. We do not want to see another barrier to home ownership, especially for our first-time home buyers. Increased premiums for flood insurance would be yet another financial hurdle to overcome. We also believe that there will be current NFIP policyholders who will be significantly financially impacted by the pricing methodology of Risk Rating 2.0 upon renewal of their flood policy through no fault of their own. So again, we thank you all for fighting and for supporting New Jersey homeowners. Thank you again. Thank you. Great story. We're always short and sweet. Thank you, Senator.
You want to take your folder here? Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you to all the participants. ¿Tienes la cámara andando? Oh, okay, está bien. I was just want to make sure I don't get yelled at later. I didn't say anything in Spanish. So with that, we're happy to take a few questions, if there are any. If not, thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to making this happen. So, all right.
Thank you.
Great job, Senator.
Thank you. I like you. You do it extemporaneously, no notes. I mean, you got this down pat.
Coming for the real thing.
No, it's a hard turn.